Biden administration gearing up for another fight to end former President Donald Trump's Remain in Mexico policy, now that the Supreme Court has agreed to weigh in on this legal battle. Former acting commissioner of Customs and Border Protection and visiting fellow at FAIR, Mark Morgan, joins us now. Mark, good morning. Nice to see you as always.
Good morning, Eugene.
So the Biden administration was court-ordered to reinstate the Remain in Mexico policy back in December. January border encounter numbers, while still at a staggering 154,000, show the first decrease in months. Now, Mark, you work closely with former President Trump on this policy. Do you think it's still needed? And what do you make of the Biden administration trying to end it?
Yeah, absolutely, Eugene. First of all, it's needed. Let's take a look at that 154,000 because it's important to put it in context. I know some of the reports will say, hey, it's down a little bit from the previous month, but it's down from this past December, which was also a historic high, which also was higher than the 3 previous years combined. And this past January, the number was 100% increase from the year before and quadrupled the numbers from 4 years ago. So the numbers are not getting better. They're continuing at historic high levels, along as the number of gotaways too. When I see the numbers like this, to me, it just means more individuals are breaking into the country, getting away. And right now, look, one of the most significant policies to reduce the flow of illegal immigration was the Remain in Mexico program. The fact that they're trying to stop it in the Supreme Court just tells me they're more concerned with policies being driven by politics and ideology rather than what's in the best interest of this country.
And I want to be clear about exactly what this policy means. This is non-Mexican migrants attempting to get into the U.S., now having to stay across the border in Mexico while they wait for their U.S. dates here. The issue with this, Mark, is that oftentimes they get the court date and then they don't show up, and then they go missing, and then we don't know where they are in the U.S., correct?
That's exactly right. That is the key, Eugene. It was to close one of the most significant loopholes we had in our immigration system. That being, if you broke into our country and illegally entered as a family, the law said we had to catch and release you and never to be heard from again. The Remain in Mexico program closed that loophole. By February of 2020, we saw a reduction of almost 80% of illegal immigration because of this program.
Well, let's take a closer look at those numbers. According to data from the Transactional Records Access Clearinghouse, 71,076 asylum seekers were returned to Mexico to await court decisions. That was back in 2019 and 2020. Now, since this policy was put back in place in December by court order, do you have that number? How many migrants have been returned? And to be clear, it's not necessarily returning them permanently, right?
Yeah, so both of those are great points. So the numbers since January, remember, they were actually ordered to put this program back in place almost 6 months ago. But they really only started instituting in this December. And since then, Eugene, it's only been a couple hundred. So think about that. Since they were ordered to do this back in August, 6 months ago, just in 6 months, they've encountered almost 1 million coming across the border illegally. And how many have they enrolled in the program? A few hundred. So it's a joke. It's having absolutely no impact. And that 71,000 number that you mentioned, here's the key with that. One of the key aspects of the program was to deter additional migrants from risking their lives, paying the cartels to break into their country. And it was effective because what they don't tell you is about 400,000 less migrant families did not take the journey because the Remain in Mexico program was in place. This program, this administration, they're just playing lip service to it.
You know, but before we let you go, I want to turn your attention to another issue. What we're dealing with right now with Russia and Ukraine and recently with Afghanistan. The Pentagon actually found at least 50 Afghan evacuees who were brought to the U.S. posed, quote, potentially significant security concerns. Others had, quote, derogatory information that would make them ineligible for parole. So even early on, many were expressing concerns about the screening process then. Mark, your thoughts. What do you make of this latest report, and how does that affect our current situation with Ukraine? Because we're likely to see lots of Ukrainians now seeking refuge, perhaps, if there's an invasion.
Yeah, so Eugene, this is very important. I was one of those individuals early on. So we saw fail one. They were just loading Afghan citizens, on the plane with no vetting being done. And then what we saw, they made their way to a safe third country. Instead of slowing down and making sure that we did not put one individual into this country that did not have derogatory information. Fail number two, they were more concerned about the political optics to say, look at everything we're doing. And they risked actually importing a terrorist into this country, Eugene. And now, look, we could be doing the same thing with Ukraine. Instead, what we should be doing is the international standard, and other countries like Poland should be stepping up to receive these refugees rather than America being the answer to everybody.
Mark Morgan, we always appreciate your insight. Thanks for joining us this morning.
You bet. Thanks.